rest of our team. Commissioner Danila Blanca, Deputy Chief Carlos Avila, Public Works Director Juan Pena, and the one and only Mr. Quintana. He is our IT man, our everything man. Everything to do with technology, he does for us. With a great job. Thank you. Welcome. Here's a sign-up sheet. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Alonso from TYLN, our city engineer, so we can all listen and learn. It's all yours, Frank.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as you all know, we've been working on this citywide traffic study for some time. We met a few months ago. So this is basically recap everything we've done over the past few months. So let's jump right in it. Just overall, what we're gonna talk about today. Recap a little bit of what we talked about last time, which is basically what the goals are of the study. We'll recap the public workshop, and then Vikas will go over our approach to the project, how we did the data collection, and basically what the findings of all that data, all the analysis said. We'll also go over our current draft recommendations for improvements for what's next, and then we'll go over what's going to happen after all this is finalized. And then at the end, of course, we'll open it up, we'll take studies. You guys can look at the different maps that we've prepared showing locations for improvements, and we really, at the end of the day, we really want to get your feedback so that we can finalize the report with whatever things we may be missing or anything that we need to additionally look at. So the goal of the study, the first goal, so actually, let's take a step back. So this project was initiated through a grant that we received from the county as TPO, from the Transportation Planning Organization. It was a grant to do a new citywide traffic study. There was one done in the early 2000s, which resulted in all the traffic circles and all the traffic calmers that we have throughout the city. That study, again, was done in the early 2000s. So, typically cities do citywide type of master plans like this every 10 to 20 years, so we're in that range. So we were able to apply for and we received the grant from the county to go ahead and do this study. So the first goal of the study was to look at the system that we built of traffic calming measures, and then compare that to the study that was done in the early 2000s, and see if in fact all the measures that the city has taken to reduce speed and traffic and all that have been effective. So that would be kind of the first thing that we're looking at. Secondly, we're going to analyze the data that we currently had to see where we still have issues of traffic flow, issues of pedestrian and all that. That's kind of based on public input. And finally, do a comprehensive analysis of the city and see where we still have holes, where we still have issues of speeding, of safety issues, things that we can address through further traffic calming measures. So those are kind of the three key things that we look at. So back in late April is when we did the initial public workshop, where I think most of you were at. It was very well attended. We had about 40 residents at that workshop, and really you guys gave us tremendous feedback. We had a map of the city, and it was a really kind of open forum, and you guys told us where you see problems. So I know it's hard to see on that map, but there's a lot of markups and stuff on that map of feedback that we got from you guys. And essentially that served as the basis of the study. So from that, we decided where we were going to do locations, where we take traffic counts and speed counts and things like that would serve as the data for our analysis. So really that meeting was the basis of the study, to get that input from the public. So we received a lot of suggestions about traffic calming measures. Very specific. You guys were very specific on a lot of the locations and what you wanted to see. We also provided.
We also got feedback. Feedback on citations. There was a lot of discussion about enforcement and more citations should be issued. So we looked at that as well, and we'll share what we found on that in a little bit.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Vikas to kind of go over a little bit of how we approach the study itself, or how we collected the data, and a little bit about the results, and I'll be back to tell you what's coming next.
Frank. So as Frank mentioned, we got a lot of good input from you all. You had marked up maps, told us certain locations specific where you were seeing speeding issues, cut through traffic. We used that as a basis for this third item here, 24-hour speed volume studies, and we layered that with one of the other things that Frankie mentioned early on was to make sure that we study the effectiveness of the things that have been implemented, traffic calming measures, traffic circles. So we layered the information that input we got from you as well as what's existing out there, and that's what we combined to come up with this 43 locations for speed volume studies were on the residential streets. We also included this time around arterials, even though we know we have only so much jurisdiction, but we wanted to report those results back to you. We also looked at crash data, that's the first item there. We looked at 3 years worth of crash reports, and these are location specific. We obtained them from Signal 4 Analytics. It's pretty robust data. And then we also looked at citations. Again, there was a lot of feedback on more enforcement and citations should be issued. So we looked at about 3.5 years worth of citations from the police department. We also did some operational analysis. Again, this is more on the periphery, but again, we want to report that back to you. And then, of course, we looked at the previous study and make sure that whatever analysis we are doing, we are consistent with some of the criteria that was used back then, so that we are comparing apples to apples. And again, I'll share that criteria kind of toward the end of the presentation when we talk about more additional traffic calming measures. So real quick here, the first item on the previous slide was crash data. So we looked at crashes, as I mentioned, for 3 years. And there's a spatial component. We map those crashes, and you can see majority of them are on the arterials. On the periphery, they tend to be concentrated along at the intersections. Again, that's where most of the conflicts are with the turning vehicles and whatnot. There were just under 600 crashes in this 3-year period. Good thing is 0 fatalities. 64 crashes involved injuries, which is what we call injury crashes, and then there were about 9 that involved bicycle and pedestrians. So not that much, which is good. They should be 0, but this is still on the lower side, single digit. In terms of citations that we looked at, there were about 141 citations that were issued for moving violation. So there were others for parking and other things, but these were 141 over a period of 3.5 years. From speed volume studies, so this is really interesting, goes back to checking the effectiveness of the traffic circles that are already out there implemented. And what this shows here is these are the various locations. These are the existing devices. There are small cut lines here that it's difficult to see, but that's where we are reporting volume and speed. And what that shows here is our analysis shows 50% reduction in crashes. So we looked at the crashes at these locations back in 2004 compared to the crash data now, and we saw about 50% reduction in those locations. So that's pretty good. And in terms of reducing speeds, we saw that 18 out of 22 locations had reduced speed compared to what was back in 2004, which is about 88% of those locations where we implemented for traffic calming devices, they were effective in reducing speed.
If I may just interject for 1 second. So this is one of the boards that we have here, so you guys can look at after. And as Vikas mentioned, you'll see the blue locations where we have the traffic circles today, and then you'll see where we actually took the speed counts. So you'll see 2 numbers. You'll see one number, which is just a number, and that's the volume. That's the total daily volume, 24-hour volume. And then you'll see the actual 80th percentile speed. So that's what we use to evaluate. So just so you guys know, after this will be here for you guys to look at. And then as Vikas mentioned, I think this is a good thing to highlight because, I mean, for us as engineers, this is the kind of stuff we nerd out about because you go back 20 years and you built all this stuff and now you can see how effective it really was. I mean, a 50% reduction in crashes is huge. And to have 88% of what we implemented actually show effective, you don't usually see those type of numbers. So it's a cool thing to really see, how a study done 20 years ago versus now, how effective. So that's not to say that we don't have issues. There's still issues that we'll go over.
Right, and speaking of, right there, there are still these locations, as Frankie mentioned, there are still issues in the study area. We have highlighted about 7 locations here. The last 2 are really on the periphery. The other 5, the top 5 are residential streets. There is one, the top one, 22nd Street between 67th and 65th, which an existing traffic calming device is there, it's out there. There are 2 crashes and that still shows up as a location where folks are speeding. The other 4 locations, there isn't a traffic calming device. Now, I would also point out this is purely based on just speed and volume. When we talk about, additional traffic calming recommendations and measures, there is some other criteria that, we layer in to identify those locations that meet the threshold or qualify for additional measures. But just based on this one, these 7 locations do show up.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Because I can't see anything on the green lines. Can you kind of really fast read the streets?
Absolutely. And sorry about that. The first one is 22nd Street between 67th Avenue and 65th Avenue.
Okay.
Second is 22nd Street between 65th and 64th. Third one is 65th Avenue between 12th Street and 8th Street. Fourth one is 65th Avenue between 14th and 88th Street.
64.
64 between 14 and
14th and 8th.
Okay, and 8.
Yep. And the fifth one is 59th Avenue between 12th and 16th. And the other 2 are 67th. So that's up to or periods. We did operational analysis as well. We went out and we collected peak hour turning movement data. This was on typical weekdays, and when you put all this traffic information, we also looked at the projects that are out there that have been built recently, looked at the traffic generated from those studies, put all that together and did projections 5 years out, so until 2024. And when we ran this model, it shows, again, this is not surprising, you all experience this today. There are these 3 intersections that continue to operate below the acceptable level of service. The first one is 8th. There are 2 of them are on 8th Street, 8th and 67th, 8th and 57th, and then the third one is 16th and 57th. And you see that those intersections would fail during peak hours. So again, I think they're failing now. It just adds more delay to it.
Gus, what do you mean by failing? What does that mean?
So,
what does it mean to be?
So typically, there's level of service. It's engineers measure from A to F. A being super, meaning there's no delay at all. You would just if you approach an intersection, it would be free flow. You would just go through the intersection.
Okay.
F, you probably have to wait like 2 or 3 cycles before the intersection clears and you can go through.
Okay. Do you have the traffic light timing?
Yes.
Sort of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
Okay.
So that's the range A to
Okay.
F, and A to D is what is acceptable. That's typically what DOT does. In terms of additional recommendations for traffic calming measures, like I said, in addition to the speed volume that I showed about 2 slides ago, the 24-hour traffic, 84th percentile speed, we add cut-through traffic as well as peak hour volume and number of crashes per year. If any one of these criteria would be met, that location would qualify for additional traffic calming measure. And based on that, we identified think there are more than a dozen.
Yeah, we can't see those at
Those are, and I can read them, or they probably are on.
Yeah, they're
They're on there.
graphically
Okay.
on
Yeah,
here.
they're on there.
Okay.
We can, you know,
Okay.
you guys can come up and look at all this. Everything's graphically on.
And basically the
Blue ones are already existing, correct?
No, these are.
no, these are
are
all
new.
recommended. So these are the locations, and again, you can look up close, there's about 10 of them. The rest on the left-hand side of the table are on arterials, but we wanted to point that out. I know, again, the city does not have jurisdiction over those arterials. But again, from a technical analysis standpoint, we wanted to report that and share that analysis with you.
Okay, excuse me, those are all arterials?
No, just the 5 at the bottom from A or 6, A1, A2, A3, 4, 5, so these.
Okay.
But about 10 of them are within the city internal, and those are shown on that, which is the same map right here.
Because if you would, really quick, just to be sure everyone understands, would you say which ones are arterial and we don't have jurisdiction over? Just as general information.
Absolutely.
Just which are the roads?
Everything on the periphery is arterials.
Okay,
So, and everything inside,
so
the
6,
boundary.
7, 5, 7,
exactly. Yep.
And Coral Way.
And 4, yep.
So we
And
don't,
si-
we don't, and 62nd Avenue.
and 62nd.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And 16.
16 is the collector.
Well, but on 16th, we have
The share.
20 parking.
Meaning the roads we don't have jurisdiction over, that's the ones I wanted you to
Oh,
verbalize.
okay.
Okay.
And so the light green dot is a three-way stop, which I'm assuming that's 16th, I can't even tell.
That's
that.
11th
Yeah.
Street and 62nd Avenue.
This one up here.
It should be,
This one right here.
it should be right there, yeah.
Okay, I
It's the
see.
same.
And so it's
Yeah.
already existing there, or is it?
No, this is what we're proposing as future.
These are all additional recommendations.
Okay. And then these two little blue ones down here, sorry, this traffic circle, traffic circles, are these near the new apartments over on
This is on,
20th Street?
Yes.
Anything on 18th Street?
On 18th Street, we have existing,
You have coffee devices there, yeah, you have circles. But
We have two
we still have a
circles.
problem there.
we have 3 circles.
Yeah, exactly. It's not helping the speed, I'm telling you.
And so we're gonna put a traffic circle, God bless, I'm only 58.
If you guys want, let's wrap it up, and then we'll kind of all come around here, and you guys can each look at
Like a
it.
little laser light.
We'll take, yeah, if you want, when we're done with the presentation, we can just come up and maybe take like 10 minutes, and you guys can digest this. And I mean, we really want to get your feedback, so we'll
Yeah,
just.
and I think there's only probably one more slide after this, so, which is
Yeah.
for you.
So, but yeah, so we'll wrap it up. So the next steps, so this is, let me finish it. So yeah, the part of just finalizing this is sitting down again with the public, presenting our findings and getting your feedback again, so that's what we'll kind of do now. There are some areas that we've identified that I think we need to do a little more study on. For example, the development on 8th Street was still under construction while we were doing our study. So we really didn't get any good data on 63rd Avenue. We thought there was no traffic coming through there. So when that opens up, we'll probably go back and do some counts there and do a revision to this study to incorporate that. And then there's 11th Street is a street that Juan suggested that we, on the northeast side over here that we look at, that we did not do as part of the study. So everything can be better. So what we're going to do is take feedback from you guys, and we already anticipate that we're going to do a revision to incorporate some of these things that we did not do here. So once we get all that done, we'll prepare a draft report now. That'll hopefully we can publish that on the website so everybody will have access to the report. And then prepare a final report, submit that to the county for review. So one thing that we all need to be aware of is that we're going to make recommendations, but just because we're making these recommendations doesn't mean the county's going to approve it. Any type of traffic modification to the roadway network does need to be approved by Miami-Dade County, except for actually traffic circles. We can do under, well, if it gets approved, but the county needs to approve anything that we propose when it comes to traffic modification. So just because, like I said, I'll reiterate, just because we have it here doesn't mean it's gonna happen. We still gotta go through the county and get their approval. So that's basically the process. We'll wrap up the report, submit it to the county. We'll probably have some comments from them and try to finalize, and then at some point we'll have to take it to commission to be ratified as basically the plan moving forward. So that's generally the process. So if, I think maybe what we can do is take some questions, and then if you guys want, we can all come up here, you guys can digest this a bit. If you want, I can go over this in detail, maybe just kind of walk around with this, if you guys want. Is that okay, or?
Last question?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so was 18th Street between 62nd and 67 included in that study? How did you do that? Because I didn't see anything like measuring the speed or anything like
Yeah,
that.
we had two counters, one between 63rd and 64th, and then one between 65th and 67th.
On 18th Street?
On 18th Street, yeah. And they recorded, the volumes are a little bit high, but, and the speeds were 30 and 33 miles an hour.
That's why I'm asking. This right here is 65th, and it was 18th, that puts it in.
Yeah, these are just.
These are, that's why. Okay, so it is this.
You was
So this is in the middle street, so it's not just like two sides.
And that's the other one.
This west, he was just saying, that's west. He was just saying, that was just that intersection.
Right, but it will go, that's the other thing. Right, so.
Because it didn't have the network in it.
And I don't remember the date. I don't remember the date. That's my question, yeah.
I know she was
run by the county, by the city, or
talking to me and I feel bad.
between 8 and 18, is that the city or that county?
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, this is not.
Right across from the two-story building with two guys walking.
Second hand, you want to second hand?
So on 16th Street,
You go down to the
on the corner, turn up
63rd, you go west.
Go back and take what you say, and then finalize the report. Yeah, this is definitely the time to tell.
House sold for like 800 something. He lives right across the
But this is the time. This is the time to tell them.
And that's the only reason I came here.
They need
you guys ever,
Well, roughly.
yeah.
So now we can ask. Exactly. We can ask. It's not a We spend a lot of time. I have a question. When was this study conducted?
Mid-May, so we did the public meeting end of the traffic was collected over a period of 2 weeks.
Okay, so you mentioned the new building that I'm giving them, we had one in second grade, and at the same time, just in the house, putting up, like it wasn't really like it. Now it's putting up, but you didn't mention that street.
22nd is.
No, you said you were gonna redo the street because the street. Right, because it really wasn't in construction yet. But you didn't mention 22nd.
Because we already got data that shows we need to full traffic. We don't really, I mean, we know that there's an issue. We got
Right now, another building, empty now on that street.
No, one of the things that we may have not even brought up last time
planning and labor.
Because they don't want us to.
Then we have to
Guys, can I have your attention for 1 second? Mr. Bennett just mentioned something to me that you guys are asking about Publix. The WWE World Wrestling Mud Pit that's always in front of Publix. So after it rains, it's been like that since. We have a beautiful Publix that we claimed as West Miami, and there's been this mud pit there ever since. So it's been what, like 2 years now? More? Okay. We have been, I'm not gonna say fighting around, we've been negotiating, it's the right word, right? Negotiating with the state, to put a curb there.
On 57.
On 57 in front of Publix, so we would have to invite the World Wrestling Federation to do a mud wrestling there. So it's taken us 4 years, after multiple emails, pictures, just negotiating, asking, and Publix, I felt so bad for the manager, because he has to pay each time to resolve that.